Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP Mail. Today I get to interview Heather. So Heather, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Heather, you got your type back just a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think and how did you feel about getting your typing results? And also, if you don't mind, can you give us your full typing results as well?
Yeah, definitely. So it is double masculine, T-E-S-I, blast, play, sleep, consume.
So you are an ESTJ and you are one of the most extroverted type of ESTJs.
Apparently so, yes. So this ought to be fun.
And what did you think and how did you feel when you got that results back?
Yeah, it was a little bit of surprise. So I am a counselor. I have my LPC in counseling. And so when I was going through my master's, I've been into personality for a long, long time, but all I knew was the stereotype of the Myers-Briggs. And so back when I was getting my LPC, my master's, we basically had to do a career counseling course. And so in that course, we had to actually go through and do the legit paid Myers-Briggs test. And so I was an ENFP. So that just goes to show you how much self-awareness I have. So after that, I just kind of let it go. And last year, I kind of picked up again with personality. I'm always thinking through people and observing things and noticing things, and definitely want to understand how people tick. That's always been in me. And so once I heard about the Enneagram, I kind of got wrapped up in the Enneagram for quite a while. And then I don't recall, I guess I must have just been on YouTube looking around, and I think I noticed some of Dave and Shan's videos, and I was like, what is this? And so I started watching it, and I started going, this is nothing that I remember. It just takes everything and kind of throws it upside down. And it's like a whole brand new foreign language that you're learning. And so I just got really into it and started obsessively watching the videos. And of course, the immediate thing you're going to do is go figure out which part you are and all those different things. And so with that, joined just, some of the Facebook groups and got into the classes. And when I kind of got rolling, I had narrowed it down pretty far. I felt pretty confident with the EJ. I felt confident with the TE. I debated the masculine, but it's probably true. I knew I was ST, but my thought is that I was play over blast, not blast over play, even though there was something in me that just kept saying, no, Heather, it's your blast first. And so literally my job. And so I just kind of kept playing with it. So I just settled on that because that's what seemed make the most sense to me. And it was play blast. And I was thinking consume potentially, then sleep, or sleep consume. So when I met with Shan, or before I met with Shan, I had, of course, prepared and spent a lot of time having my notes and my bullet points and, my agenda and, how maybe this would flow and that would flow. And I'd already thought through all of it and, all that SI stuff. And so when we were talking right before, I had typed all this stuff on this page and just kind of this, stream of consciousness. And I kept going back to that second human need. I kept going, well, my second human need is security. Like that is no doubt security. So I was going to say in there, so how can I reconcile the security piece with the fact that I'm looking at an extroverted observer as being second savior? It just didn't mix. And also play blast, that didn't mix. And so that was my question that I was going to have for her when I, gotten down to that part. And then she just preemptively, we were talking about something else and preemptively said, by the way, you're SI, you're blast play. And I was like, what? She goes, you continually keep talking about security and safety in your video. And I was like, wow. So that connection, that femininity, ooh. And so it was like, wow, cool. And so it was good because it just confirmed, I think, what I had already kind of in my gut had felt, but I just was like, no, the pieces weren't quite fitting. And so that just really confirmed it. So when she explained what the SI meant, it just, hand in glove. It was clarity. It felt good. So the last handful of days, I've just been really trying to rethink through the language that I'm using, rethink looking back to journaling and different things and being able to pick up and see the SI and see the NE more. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what I've been saying, but not using the right language.
I love how ST clear you are when you
I got the ST part right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no denying that you are blast and ST first, because everything you said was crystal clear. There's no room for interpretation. Everything is just crystal clear, easy to understand, straight to the point. Um, I wish I had that superpower. I mean, we have the same functions. So I think when Shan typed you when you originally got typed officially by Myers-Briggs as an ENFP,
Yeah.
I don't think it's too far off because the functions are the same as ENFPs and ESTJs,
Okay.
Yeah, we have the exact same functions. I have SI
Yeah.
also. It's just in the bottom, right? I have NE, FI and T. So yeah, it's not too far off. It's actually pretty good. The only thing pretty much that Myers-Briggs screwed up on is that they got you as a double decider instead of a double observer. But otherwise, it's close. It's pretty close actually.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because I get this feeling now looking back that I peacock a little bit on that EP because it's the EJ and the IJ, and so I do a little bit of that EP peacocking. That no, I'm like variety, and I don't want to be limited, bro. Don't control me. And so it's like it's not that I can't get in that rebellious bent, but no, security is so much more of a human need for me than variety.
I think from an image standpoint, a lot of people want to be an EP, right? Because the EP
You're
is
cool. You're the cool kids.
Yeah, we're chill, we're relaxed, easygoing, So yeah, it's a cool kids, like you said, the cool kid factor. And you work in a school setting too, so you can kind of see how the
I'm not that kind of counselor. I'm a regular, like, professional counselor. So
okay.
not like the kind at a school. It'd be the kind where you would sit down in therapy.
I see. So you're doing
A
like
therapist. Sorry, we have different terms probably in the United States, and even in different states, there's different terms for what they call it. That's not what I do in a regular. What I do in a regular is I actually train for a really big healthcare company, and so I train the staff that work with our members on mental health.
Okay, so it's more clinical then.
Yes, so clinical. So I'm a clinical trainer is what I do. So I do remote trainings where they come to Zoom room or they come to a go-to training room, and I'm training them, teaching them on all sorts of different things.
Would you say that working in that profession has helped you explore your FI better?
Wow, we're just going for that bottom function there, are we?
Well, it was the natural transition, so I thought.
I'm just teasing. Yes, yeah. I think that part of it, certainly counseling, then also I'm right almost towards the tail end of becoming a health coach. And so in the coaching program, what's been incredibly helpful for me, especially with the NF, the demon NF that I have, is I've had to learn to stop using my saviors of ST, because you're not supposed to be in that expert role. And so when I'm ST, like when I'm training or teaching, I just take that authority. I'm in an ST role. I'm training you. I'm teaching you, this is this. But when you do counseling or when you do coaching, you're not in that expert role. And so I had to learn how to meet people where they were at. So to get into that F. And it's a struggle because this is something that fascinates me. And I watched a video recently of Dave and Shan talking about FE. And they just barely kind of touched on it, but I quickly picked up on it. The people that I noticed that were FE in the counseling program, they just have this ability to empathize really easily, it seems, like really quickly. And this one particular girl I was thinking of, she would listen to what the people say. She would just immediately feel whatever it was, get whatever it was, and spin it right back around with this amazing insight. And I'm just sitting there with my jaw on the ground going, crap, I didn't see any of that. So it's like I really struggled through my counseling program, and I'm like going, why am I becoming a counselor? I'm not good with empathy. So I kept kind of noticing that. And it's only been recently that I've realized that part of that is because I have to filter it through the FI. So if I've experienced it, or if I can grab something that's similar and experience that, then I can go, okay, now I know what you're talking about. Now I can kind of step into that. So fortunately, I've had enough life experiences through different mental health things I've gone through, or physical health things, and just marriage and kids and lots of material to kind of fuel my FI, so that way I can get to empathy. It's not that I don't have compassion, but that ability to really empathize is something I've had to work on. And that's really a big NF thing to do in a way as well. So in coaching, it helps, my intuition really helps because I stop problem solving. I stop TE, and I stopped trying to organize for them and just, well, if you just do 1 step, 2 steps, 3 step, 4 step, it'll fix your problem.
Yeah.
I did that for decades. And so stopping that and just really sinking in and listening and watching intuition kind of helps it to unfold for me. And so once I see it begin to unfold, then I just keep asking them, I keep putting it back on them, putting it back on them. And so FI has helped in the sense of connecting with them at an emotional level, I have to remind myself to sink into my heart and to kind of get more in that emotional place, which is not easy for me. I don't really like emotions all that much. So yeah, so it's definitely pushed me for sure to have to grow in both NF.
I think with NF and, NEFI, it's kind of like using your NE to kind of gather that person's FI, you're gathering that person's character, so when it comes to consuming another person's character, you do have to take a deep dive and kind of like really feel and feel like who they are, it's like NE gathering like the vibe of that person, and then the FI is like filtering it into your own like feelings, and it's kind of like what you said, for us FI users, we have to go through a lot of bad life experiences for us to empathize. Otherwise we cannot empathize with another human being. It's kind of hard. But it's not the same as FE though, because FE, for them, feelings are not personal. So even if they're quick at giving back that feeling that they gathered from that person, it's also impersonal and they only feel it in the moment. But for us with FI, even after we stop interacting with a person, we can still feel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's that.
It's like a sponge. That's what it feels like, because NE is constantly running in the background. So it's just always running. And then, so I'm constantly at lightning speed, just making intuitive leaps and connections and stuff. And then what's happening with the FI is it's super, because it's double feminine, it's super spongy. That's how I always envision it. It's like this sponge. And so I just soak this stuff up, and I'm like going, what am I picking up? What am I soaking up? And so it's tough because at the end of the day, you've got to squeeze that sponge out and kind of get rid of that. And that's not always easy to do. So yeah, I agree.
Because you have feminine FI, do you feel emotional when you do that deep dive though? And like,
no. I mean, I think it's easier for me to be able to separate out. Like if I'm helping with someone, it's not that I don't have compassion or I hurt for them, but I am trying to keep that professional distance. My bachelor's is in social work, and so that just gets drilled into us to keep that professional boundary. So I just kind of be able to kind of keep that distance a little bit, and so I don't think I get too deep in it.
What about with family and friends?
Probably more with family. I don't know as much with friends. That's something that I've had to try to let myself kind of dive into that so that I can be a little bit more emotional with that person. If the emotions are too strong, I'm going to be honest, I get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I get uncomfortable with it. And so I've had to learn how to navigate that, but I just kind of step into that fear. I basically have to just stop listening to me and stop thinking about me and just really focus on that person is what I do. And just kind of try to get myself out of the way. I'm constantly aware of what's going on inside of me. And a lot of times if I can pick up what's going on inside of me, I kind of know what's going on with them.
So a part of NF is also your life mission, your purpose, or what's the point, right? So Dave and Chan always talk about people who are ST or NT. They're always trying to solve a problem and they're really blowing their heads off trying to, solve the problem, argue with people, trying to fix the problem. But at the end of the day, you think back, it's like, what's the point? Why did I go through all that? Like, what was the point? So would you say, have you gotten a chance to get a better understanding of your NF, like your purpose, your mission, what you want out of life, like what brings you the most joy? Have you gotten a chance to like identify that?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's the purpose that I feel is just being able to take the experiences that I've experienced in my life and the difficulties that I've gone through and been able to overcome, and to be able to let other people know that they're not alone, to let other people know that there's people that can connect with them, because connection is huge for me. Just having that ability to connect with people because of the enough of sensing that there's a higher purpose to what I've gone through. And it's this person on the other side that I can just love and care about and connect with, and give them the shoulder to cry on, provided it's not too much, to give them the shoulder to cry on. And so that's huge. I think also I really feel like an advocate for people that are marginalized. Most of my career has been with people that are low socioeconomic, mental illness, low socioeconomic, and also having a mental illness. And so that's the company that I work with, has a lot of disability. And so just being able to help people to understand and to have sympathy and compassion, and to take a different look, and to give that dignity and things like that. So I'm always kind of getting that chance to preach that, so to speak, and to be that influence and motivator in that with the people that are working with people that are hurting, that are marginalized, that don't have the advantages and different things like that. So that's kind of what I've tapped into.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you an EP question. So you have double feminine NF, and your NF is the same as my NF, and it's an EP, and it's a gathering animal. So what would you say is your top 5 bucket list that you want to do for yourself? Like, do you have like a bucket list of like, I must do this before I die? Like, and it's selfish. It's just for you. You're not helping other people. It's for you, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Just for me. Definitely I want to see all 50 states.
There you go. Good. Nice.
There you go. Been to 28 of them. I want to hit the rest of them.
Okay.
Love travel. Probably jump out of an airplane.
Nice.
Gosh, I haven't really thought through.
So we got 2 so far. We got 3 more to go.
I may have to get back with you on that.
Yeah, no worries.
A book, definitely a book. That's bucket list. So I've been working through, I've got, an SI chaptered out in different folders and things like that, and just kind of doing it chapter at a time and working through that. So having a book.
So you want to write a book? Okay, so that's 3. we can go back later if you want, but but it's good though. At least 3. You got 3 there, right? And that's really good. It's really well defined too. So like the fact that you love traveling, you want to go visit all the U.S. states. That's a big one. You want to skydive. That's a big one too. So you have it identified. So that's your EP side. I maybe you did type yourself upside down when in Myers-Briggs, because if you type yourself as ENFP, that's NF first, right? So that's I think you subconsciously, that's what you wanted. You wanted to gather travel experiences. You wanted to do something like extreme, like skydiving, like you wanted that.
I like extreme. I like extreme. Something to kind of add in here that's interesting too, if I might. So what I've realized, because you've got the ST, I guess is more the left brain, if I remember the map that they put out there, and then the NF would be the right brain.
Yeah.
Is that correct? The way that they...
I guess so. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's go with that then.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I think it sounds right.
We'll just roll with it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I just mentioned a little bit earlier, and also as a part of a passion of mine, is to advocate and to help people that are struggling with mental illness. I've dealt with mental illness since I was a child, having gone through PTSD in different levels, having gone through ADHD, having dealt with bipolar disorder. And so what's interesting with bipolar disorder, which I've been medication free now, just to lifestyle changes, because I got my SI on point. It really helped. It really saved me in a lot of ways. to where I could kind of get my life in balance. But it really is this, I could see the flip between the ST and the NF. And so most of the time when I feel balanced and kind of me and baseline, it's leaning more on that ST. That's what's natural for me. But sometimes what would happen is when the mania would hit, it just drops right out of that prefrontal cortex. It just drops right down into that limbic system where the NF is kind of hanging out. And so I would kind of become unfettered. And that's when I would feel, all these connections that would just open up for me. And I could just see all these different things that would connect. And so that would happen quite a bit. And then also the FI would just be like, unfettered, doesn't matter about consequences, and, just do whatever I want or go for whatever I like. And, without thought of other people, which is not normal for me, which is not baseline for me. And so fortunately it wasn't bipolar 1 disorder where I had to be like, hospitalized or, but I've done enough damage in my life. Fortunately, I have a lot of support where when I've been in those places, it really is this balance between these two parts. And that's what made it so crystal clear to me of when I know what ST is like and kind of what I know what the NF is like. And so, so just over the years, just being able to get healthy and to be able to balance those things has been huge for me.
Since we're talking about the right brain, since you brought it up, let's go to your next animal, the sleep, and it's SF. Talk about your SF sleep. How do you experience your SF sleep? Like, how do you process your emotions? How do you prioritize what you like, what you dislike,
Yeah.
And how do you set boundaries with other people? So those are 3 questions that involves SF sleep.
Okay, well, I'll have to get you to step me through them again in just a minute. But yeah, I'm not as familiar with, I know what SF is, so I guess it's value in the real world.
Yeah, the physical world, yes.
Physical world.
It's very judgmental, actually. SF sleep is very judgmental. But
well, tell me what it looks like, because I know what it looks like for me to do more the introverted energy, but I'm not sure how that connects with SF.
So I'm sleep last, so I'm SF last. But Dave and Shan, when they typed me, they said I can use it. So I'm like, okay, sweet, I can use my last animal. And basically, the way I see SF sleep from my own perspective is, number 1, it's when I set boundaries with people. I think that was the last one I had to learn how to use SF, is the setting boundaries part. Because Dave and Shan said I can use my SF sleep, but it wasn't complete. They wanted me to complete it. Like, it wasn't complete, So they said you can process your you can process your emotions. Because when I sent them my typing, they expected, I'm play blast, right? So I'm like you, I'm a crackhead, but like, but I'm a play blast crackhead, not a blast play. So when I explain things or when I teach, it's chaotic. It's not organized, not streamlined. It's not as clear, but it's more energetic, more, there's more energy to it, more excitement, So, so basically with the SF sleep, the first thing that I learned, the first layer I learned was just processing what I felt like growing up, starting with my childhood, dealing with my parents, and then growing up as a teen, going through my 20s. I'm in my 30s now. So kind of like going through the emotional journey there and kind of talking about like, okay, what was the emotion that I struggled with the most? So for me, when I sent them my typing video, I told them the number 1 emotion that I've struggled with in my life has always been sadness. And that's directly correlated to my dad. The second one is anger, which is attached to my mom. And the third one is loneliness. And that's kind of like an issue I dealt with in my teens, which I kind of got over with. So there was like 2 emotions that I was kind of trying to work through, going through my 20s and my 30s. So that's the first layer of sleep, which is like identifying like precisely which emotion you struggled with growing up. So for me, I was able to pinpoint it to those 3. Sadness, in that specific order too, because it's SI, right? So there's like an order. So it's sadness, number 1, that's the deepest layer. Anger, number 2, and then loneliness, third. And even with anger, I spoke to a counselor about this, And she said, anger is a surface layer emotion. So she showed me like a diagram. It's like, which of this emotion under the anger?
Yeah, it's a secondary emotion, anger is.
Right. So she's like, okay, pick which one on this list. I'm like, this one, feeling disrespected.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I'm like, so basically it's sadness, feeling disrespected, and loneliness. It was those specific three. So I'm like, okay, great. Like now I know what it is. Now I can I have something to work with, right? So that's the first layer of sleep that for both of us, because we have the same function that we have to identify is the specific emotion. The second one is setting boundaries with the tribe. You know, like okay, do I keep killing myself for the tribe, and I am leaving feeling disrespected or leaving feeling like taken for granted, or people are disrespecting my time. I'll make plans with somebody and then they'll flake out last minute, which I'm guilty of also because I'm an EP, right? So I've done that to people too. So I'm not saying I'm a saint. Like I'm guilty of this. So, taking self-responsibility for this, obviously. So how do I set boundaries with people that is like a healthy boundary? Because I have double masculine sleep, right? So when I set boundaries with people, it's very hard. Like I will cut you out of my life. I will delete you from Facebook. I will delete you from my cell phone. I will never talk to you again. Middle finger to you. I will never see you again. The thing with SF sleep is also very entertaining. Kind of like you thought it was funny, right? It's also very entertaining when you talk about your SF to people. That's kind of like your cool factor is your SF. It's kind of interesting the way it works. But like for example, like a few days ago, I told someone like, okay, that necklace you're wearing, it's so stupid, it's so freaking ugly, and it's funny, because it's so judgmental, but at the same time, it's where our SF comes from. It's from what we think inside, what we feel inside, right? So that's the second layer, which is setting boundaries with the tribe, and the third layer is priorities. So that's the one that Dave told me that was incomplete for me, is that I don't set priorities. He said, you are not setting priorities on what is valuable for you that you should be focusing on, instead of like this other stuff that distracts you, So I was like, you know what? I can see the priority. I just don't do it because I'm an EP. I don't have self-discipline, part of SF sleep is self-discipline too, right? I don't have it's something I had to work on. So going back to you now that I've kind of defined those three, let's start with the first one. What have you processed as your, let's say top three emotions that you've struggled with as you grew up, like that kind of like, do you have like a specific order that you would say that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that I would say there's necessarily set feelings that I would go the way that I kind of envision it, the way that you talked about it, and also just the videos that Dave and Shannon put out about the Jenga blocks, where they talk about the stacking. And the way that kind of clicks with me is because I have gone through a lot of difficulties and trauma as a child. What I notice is, if you've seen that movie Inside Out.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's like the epitome of the type 7. I love that movie. So Joy, of course, comes to where she's able to figure out that, where she's got all this optimism and has to actually embrace the fact that there's sadness and anger and these different things, and that it's okay, it can all be there in one place. Well, it's almost like sometimes what happens is, at least for me, there was actually a lot more tainting, where I would look back and see the negative more than I saw the positive. And so the bummer thing about SI, especially when it's super strong, is that you don't forget. And there's like these, marks, these pins that are dropped in different places of your life. And so if you think about it like those Jenga blocks, if they're all, certain colors, it's almost like there's these little black blocks that are sitting in there. And other blocks have different colors, but these little black moments in my life. And so the problem is that what I realized before I really got some help for this and sort of worked through what you're talking about, kind of processing through SI, I guess SF, the introverted, was it was tainting the entire stack. And so when I would look back, I could only see the dark, could only see those dark blocks. And so once I was able to get some help with that, specifically through a therapy called EMDR, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
EMDR is eye movement. D stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. So what you do is you're basically doing bilateral stimulation of the right brain and the left brain. And so it gives an opportunity for the logic of the left brain to be able to give perspective to the experience that you've gone through. But now I'm an adult. So I can look like you were looking back in time as an adult and be able to have a better perspective as an adult than I did as a kid. Because as a kid, you feel, you're bound to whatever it is that typically maybe had happened to you. So being able to go through that type therapy, it's actually interesting because it comes this direction. So it comes from the bottom up. And so you actually, what I noticed is I would identify that one black block that I wanted to work on. So like for you were talking about, for you, it was those 3 feelings that stood out for you. For me, it was certain events. It had the concept that was around it, potentially like feelings of abandonment, feelings of being unwanted, feelings of, whatever that was. So to your point, I guess that's a feeling.
Yeah.
Not good feelings. I need my feeling wheel.
Yeah,
so once you go into that, you're able to reprocess that one black block. And what happens is when you actually get that anchor, it actually clears everything that goes all the way back up through the blocks. And so what's fascinating then is you're able then to not only cover that one, but then it helps with a lot of the other ones on top of it. And so that's been super helpful. So now I can kind of look back and it's not as tainted. So I can see that I can have some perspective on that abandonment, why it happened, that it doesn't mean that I'm not worthy. It doesn't mean that I'm less than or don't have value. So for me, that's kind of how it worked for me, was just going through those certain events and everything that was tied within that particular event, like everything in that chapter. Does that click?
Yeah, no, you're very SD clear there.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Did it answer your question or can I answer it better?
No, your analogy was really good. I like how it took you. You had to blast play first before you got to the core. but you did identify it, but you had to go through like a blast play
lesson.
Yeah, you did that lesson first, and then you identified.
So, set it up for you. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I had to set it up for you so that.
It's okay. It's I just thought it was it's interesting, but I like how you described the Jenga blocks, the block blocks in the Jenga blocks, and then you attach an emotion to the blocks. Feelings of abandonment, unwantedness, like those are all good because you identified specifically which emotion they are based on the Jenga blocks. I think that's going to be really useful for a lot of people with FI, to like have like their own personal Jenga block and kind of identify where the black boxes are. And like kind of like go through those events and kind of like replay it, kind of like the way that you just talked about. I interviewed an ISTJ, and he kind of also, because ISTJs have the same functions as us. So, same thing as he said, like every emotion has it's specific, So the way you identified 2 of your biggest negative emotion, and it was very specific, when I identified mine was also specific. So it's not like FE, FE is like you're sad or you're happy, right? But like us with FI, there's like a very specific emotion that caused that black box, right? So I thought it was good that you describe it in that fashion. Let's go to your, you wanted to say something?
For the boundaries. You're talking about boundaries, right?
Yeah, that's your other SF. So let's talk about your other SF sleep. Let's talk about boundaries, like setting boundaries with other people.
Yeah, so that's one thing that kind of threw me as far as thinking, was I really an EJ? Because the fact that the sleep and the play are actually fairly balanced in the middle.
Right.
So I don't really have a super difficulty with boundaries. I think that I kind of exude them a bit, honestly. And so I will, if I see a need, I will absolutely rise to meet that need. In fact, that's why I try not to look too hard, because if I just see needs everywhere, I just feel like, oh, I've got to help with that need. It's really, really difficult, no matter what it is. And so I'm just immediately going to jump, but I don't like go looking for them. Not go out there looking for them, but definitely if it's there, I absolutely feel that responsibility I can manage my energy. I can manage my time. And so it's not difficult for me to say, hey, I've got this amount of time where I can help in this certain way, and then just reel it back. So I have no problem giving out for the tribe, being able to take care of me at the same time. Because if I don't have the energy or I'm not taken care of, then I can't help other people. So boundaries isn't super difficult for me to keep.
I think your story with your, like the way you use your boundaries, it's very similar to other people with double masculine sexual modalities. It seems like you guys have like a walking shield, and
I don't know if it's good, but
yeah. So maybe for you guys, it's the opposite. Like you have to let more things in as opposed to
yeah,
blocking it out. So
yeah,
I guess for double masculine, it's the opposite.
yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know. I kind of validated that from you, and like not even other EJs, but other EPs or whatnot with double masculine. It's just that not enough things are coming in. So it's the opposite for you guys. You kind of have to put like a small like a crack or something. It's like, okay, I have like a few buddies or like a few close people that, okay, you guys can come in here. It's a secret door.
Yeah. It's kind of like the way that I always explain it to my kiddos when I talk to them about boundaries is imagine yourself as a house. You don't let people that you don't know just walk straight back to your bedroom.
Yeah.
Keep them on the porch. Some people, you keep them down the street. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let them on the porch, you let them into the living room. Maybe you guys hang out in the kitchen, and you just slowly build that relationship, build that trust to where there's very few people that are going to be allowed into your private bathroom or bedroom or whatever it is that, is private. So, and I did describe it a lot of times to my kids as a shield. So it's not that I don't want, love and compassion and caring to go this direction. It's just understand that sometimes things are going to hit in this direction, and you have to, decide that, what am I going to allow in, what I'm not going to allow in. And it's kind of that choice, but I'm peacocking a bit because it's not like it doesn't seep in, because it still hits me. It's not like I don't notice. It's, certain things will still get to me, and I'll just, oh my gosh, like, especially if I think I've hurt someone or I've offended someone, I'm emailing, I'm writing, I'm doing whatever I've got to do to make it right, instead of, but that's a little bit of the IJ part too, of wanting to control a little bit. So yeah, probably letting things in and not being so, yeah, probably so.
Yeah, I guess based on your description, break-ins do happen.
Like what?
Break-ins happen, like
Break-ins happen.
yeah, break-ins happen. So it's better to have like an open house once in a while,
Yeah, it's good to have that. It's tough, especially when you've been hurt or been disillusioned or jaded or whatever. It's easy to just go, well, I guess I'm just kind of done with people. I don't need people, and just forget it. And that's not healthy either, because you need people, you need the feedback, you need the growth, you need the challenges and all of that. Yeah, agreed.
One of the guys that David Shan likes watching as kind of like what they would call like someone in an alpha state, or like a good mentor, or someone that a good role model is Owen Cook. So I don't know if you're aware of him, but he's an ENFP. He's consume, play, blast, sleep, masculine, feminine, and he is NF to the max. And one of the things that he loves talking about is your ecosystem of positive emotions. So he said that I think it's like something that like we all need to work on. Obviously, I mean, it's easier for people who are DI to work on this, obviously, but for us, because we're both of us are tribe above self. Like I'm on the extreme for tribe above self for an EP. Like I'm almost like an ESTJ kind of, almost not quite, but almost. And what he always says is that if you're always doing things that makes you happy, like for yourself, then your reliance on other people for happiness is a little bit lower. Like you'll always want people because you're an EJ, right? And I'm also an EPEJ. So we'll always want to be around people. But we should have like a baseline that we need to fill up, that stuff that we do for ourselves. It's kind of like Jim Carrey, at the end of his life, he started painting, and that was just for him. And people thought he went, nuts. But now he said, like he figured out, okay, you know what? This is what makes me happy. It's this painting stuff, So, and it's all right brain too, ironically, it's ironically right brain. Like, so, do you have an inkling somewhere of like a right brain activity? And it's like, more on the artistic side that you kind of want to engage yourself in? Like, so for example, for me, what I really wanted to learn that I have never explored was playing an instrument. Like I've always wanted to play the violin, you know, that's kind of like, I don't know why, it's just kind of like my instrument of choice. So do you have something like that, like an SF, like artistic side that you kind of want to explore?
I'm an artist. I mean, I paint, I make crafts. I built that bookshelf behind me. I like building things. I paint sometimes. I play guitar, drums, sing. So yeah, I'm an artist. I'm a musician. It's just that in the past few years, I've kind of let that go a little bit more as far as singing and playing and stuff like that. So it's something that's like I need to pick that back up because it's super physical for me, and it's just this way to kind of just get into flow and get out of me and to kind of tap into that. So it's something I need to pick back up probably. Yeah.
How do you feel when you are doing all that stuff? I know that's
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's good. And yeah, it's something where I probably just need to, bring the guitars back in here and spend more time doing that. Yeah.
Would you say it feels therapeutic or relaxing, or like what's the emotion attached to that?
As long as I can not, be thinking about that this is for something other than me, or that there has to be a purpose to it. That's where I get kind of hung up there. Is there a purpose to this? Am I wasting time? So as long as I do that, then yeah, it's therapeutic. It's just nice and relaxing. And I just have to stop thinking and just get into.
Can you say you can trick yourself into putting it as part of your routine? Because you can say, you know what, when I do this, my productivity skyrockets actually. So I need to do this. Can you do something like that?
Yeah, part of what I do in the morning too is I like to write. So what I was talking about, either whether I'm writing for a blog or writing for trying to get this book, that's also, I think, artistic in my mind.
Yeah.
And just something for me, because I don't know if anybody's going to read that or see that, but at least has a little bit of a purpose to it down that, I've got something I'm aiming for, because I like those goals. So something I'm aiming for. And so with that, I just have to go and do that in the morning and not get distracted by social media or something else where I start thinking and engaging with other people, and just kind of engage just me and whatever's, in front of me before I go out to the gym. So that helps to have that practice.
So earlier you mentioned that when it comes to setting boundaries, people, it's relatively okay for you. Because you do have play and sleep in the middle. So talk about being balanced with your energy management. Talk about obviously your play first, so you're more likely to expend energy, but you know when to hit the brakes. Like talk about that balance with expending energy, knowing that you're tired, time to rest, talk about that.
Yeah, I've definitely had to learn more in my older years. You just kind of start slowing down. So, and I get limited. So I'm over here wanting to, bench something or squat something or deadlift something, and my body just is going, no, it's too many reps on that. So I've had to learn to change and limit myself. So part of sleep energy for me, or part of, being mindful of that, is to be mindful of my limitations, both of not only energy, but just my physical resources of what I can do and not do. As far as time goes, I've always, even when my kids were little, I just knew that I have to have that little reset button for me, usually in the middle of the day. And so, when my kids were little, I just let them, watch a VeggieTale or something, and I go just do a quick little nap. I still have that habit in the middle of the day because I work from home. So eat my lunch, and then I just go kind of just stop and just lay down. I mean, it's short, it's brief, but it just gives me that quick little reset. When I go and I travel and I'm training and doing things like that, and I'm around people, I can handle that for a while. And then it's like, I just want to escape for a little bit, and then I can come back. Or at night, if the coworkers want to go out, if we're traveling and we're together, I'll do that. But then it's like, okay, all right, well, I'm going to stop at this time though, because I just know that I need that time for myself. So
that's great to hear. You talking about that, because for someone who have sleep last like me, or some people with play last, they don't know how to manage their energy and not take that like short break, you know, even like a quick 20-minute nap, you know, like I've been doing it now, but it's not consistent as yours, and I should probably do it more. So earlier you also talked about lifting weights, talk about squats, deadlifts. I work in the fitness industry, so I
Okay.
find that very interesting.
Blaster thumbs up.
Yeah, Blaster thumbs up. It's also the EJ thumbs up. So would you say being double masculine, you're kinesthetic and audio, right? Would you say it's a kinesthetic side of you that you have always been attracted to fitness or exercise? And based on what you said, it sounds like you do a lot of resistance training. So talk about your experience with just doing kinesthetic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I came out of the womb and I was just, running full steam ahead and just Energizer bunny. And so I probably was climbing everything and doing everything, getting into trouble. I've always been athletic. I mean, even when I was a little kid, one time when we lived in Germany, was running and I tripped. And so I went right into a curb and sort of like, this is the second time I split my head open. And so with that though, literally probably I had this bandage around my head and 2 days later I'm out there playing football with boys and guys. And yeah, I mean, it's just always been super athletic, did athletic stuff all through high school, into college, was doing running and triathlons for quite a while. And then when I got into my 40s, we had moved over here and I didn't have as much of the advantages as we have when we lived in the city. There just wasn't as many things to do. And so I remember liking lifting weights when I did it earlier on in like my high school years. And so I just picked up weights. So I've been doing them now for, I guess, the past 7 years. And I love lifting. I actually did a bodybuilding competition.
A what competition?
Years ago, a bodybuilding competition, a figure.
You're a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was, wow. You talk about coming out of my comfort zone. Yeah. So I did it because I always have to have a goal, something to chase, some kind of challenge. And so I was like, well, when I do running, I want a 5K. I want a 10K. I want a half marathon, whatever it is. And so with that, I was like, well, what's the equivalent of that? It's you do a show.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have done like a strength one, but I was mindful of the fact that I didn't start lifting until I was in my 40s, 43. And so I'm already dealing with back things. And so I didn't want to do that and like injure myself. So I went that vein. And so that was I guess about 3 years ago that I did that. And I don't know that I'll do another one, but I'm grateful for the experience. It really trained me. And that was part of what I was alluding to earlier was that helped me to be able to become med free and get my mental health and my physical health in check. And that's where SITE really saved me, was figuring out, because I couldn't get help with it, at least the help I wanted, figuring it out for myself. And how am I going to get better? How am I going to heal? And so I started eating clean. I didn't even know what that was. So my daughter brought it up. And so we started eating clean and I switched up my diet, started getting up consistently, because I used to roll out of bed at like 7:30, get the kids ready, get them to bed, get them off to school. It was like last minute, whatever. And so once I did that, I started consistently getting up, which is super helpful, that circadian rhythm for bipolar disorder. And so when I started to do that, exercises, eating right, then all of a sudden I started noticing what this bodybuilding stuff was. And of course I went full bore into that because I don't do anything halfway. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I still lift. I just lift a little bit more for me. So back to what you were talking about, because I was doing it for that competition. I was doing it for the challenge rather than just doing it because I enjoy it. So now when I go to the gym, I have a program, but sometimes I just go, you know what? I just feel like benching heavy today. I just feel like doing what I want.
Yeah.
The other thing I had to do for self-care, I don't know if we're on FI, but I'm here. Are we still on FI? I don't know where we are. Lost where we were.
No, just keep going. It's fine. It's fine.
So the other thing I had to do is, because when I was getting ready for the show, I mean, I was tracking everything I ate, weighing myself every single day, had my Fitbit to know what was my, what was coming in, what was going out. And so all of this was, and I just got it just became too much. It took over. And once I finished the show, I had to learn over time that I don't have to have these limitations, because I'm like, oh, if I don't have my limitations, then I'm going to lose something, or I'm not going to, and I had to like learn over time to slowly let that go and to begin to go, Heather, the healthier thing for you is to eat more intuitively, because I eat healthy anyway. That's what I crave. So be a little bit more intuitive with it. I threw my scale away. I threw my Fitbit away. I stopped tracking everything. I still have a program, but again, if I don't, that's not what I feel like doing that day. It's like, that's okay. No one is sitting here beating me over the head, telling me this is what you have to do, other than me. So it's like not listening to that critic or listening to that parent voice, or I don't know if that's SI, and just being able to do it in a way where I can enjoy it and not be so structured in it.
I love it. I love it so much. Like whatever you describe right now was pure FI. Like that is so awesome. That's good.
Okay, good. See, I'm growing. All right.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. I like how you were apprehensive at first to talk about it. I think it's an EJ thing, because I think if you talk to an IP, they'll be like, oh yeah, I did this. Like it's like easy for them to talk about it. And I noticed like EJs kind of like tiptoe before they kind of like talk about this kind of stuff. It's like, it's okay for me to talk about this? It's like, like, but no, it's cool. No, that was really wonderful. I love it. That was really good. You also demonstrated the superpower of double observer, with the tracking of the stuff, and how like you identified when it became too obsessive. You kind of learned to switch over from lifestyle healthy than competitive healthy, because they're different, right? So, right. When you were doing the bodybuilding contest, did you do bodybuilding, physique, or bikini? Because there's
figure.
What's that?
Figure.
Is there 4 categories? I forgot.
Yeah, so it's the bikini is the one where it's super feminine. It's way more feminine. Yeah. Physique is like, ripped, and that just seemed a little too much for me, just because I didn't want to get down to that body fat. Yeah. So for fitness, it's around 12%, between 12 to 14% body fat for women. And I still came in probably, more conditioned than I really needed to be. So I wasn't quite as, but it was fun. It was a fun experience. I learned a lot. I grew a lot, and not sure that I'll ever do it again, but. So
figure is between bikini and physique. And what is the goal of figure? Like, what is
it's the same thing. You just do your poses and.
No, I mean, like you said earlier, physique is lower body fat percentage, right? And then bikini is more like feminine. So what is the?
Yeah, so it's just a ballpark figure. So bikini, typically it's just the poses are different for each one of them. And usually the further you go up to like, physique, and then there's one above that, although I don't know if they have that one anymore, but it's like lower and lower body fat, like more hardened muscles, more striated muscles, lower body fat. So bikini being way more soft, not the striated muscles, more, filled out, and fitness would be in between.
So it goes bikini, figure, physique, bodybuilding. And then there's the bodybuilding is the lowest body fat percentage. So you can see all the muscle definition and whatnot. Well, I guess bikini is more like how good you look, I guess. That's pretty much what it is. And you said that it's very feminine, so I guess all the double feminine like women compete.
Well, I'm sure it's a mix. It's just, to me, it just seems, and figure can be feminine and can be as well. They're all feminine. It just seems with the lower body fat, in my mind, it gets a little bit less looking like, what you would normally see with a woman who tends to have more body fat, just in general.
Right. Okay. Got it. Your blast is double masculine. What is I mean, you've been talking about it this whole time. Like, you've been using it the most, obviously. But would you say you can overpower most people with that double masculine blast? Like, if you like.
Oh, I thought you said blouse. I was going, what? It is? You said blast. I was like, why did I come out my shirt? Blast. So the question is overwhelming? Probably. Yeah. It's something that I certainly have grown to be mindful of. I mean, us sitting here bantering back and forth, I'm going to just kind of throw it out there. If I'm training, that's what I have authority to do. That's what I'm there to do is to blast. I do have to be mindful. It just depends on who the crowd is. It's easier for me to gauge if I'm face to face because there's certain states that I go into where they're just a little bit more apprehensive, and other ones where it's just like, bring it. And it's funny because, just the way that I train is just going to be dependent. I mean, for the most part, I get really, really high marks in my evaluations, but then there's, for some people, it's just not their cup of tea. And I've had to come to be okay with that. That's the other thing that's FI I've had to learn to stop doing, is because I literally have the EJ nightmare of every time I do a training, I get evaluated every single time. And so I used to track it, and I would see where's that score and where did I land before and where now. And so just to keep my sanity, I stopped tracking all of that. So I have to take that score. I don't have a choice. I have to go see what that score is, and I have to put it into the server because it gets, added up over time. But I don't look at it day in, day out. It's like when it's done, I stick it in there out of mind. And at the end of the month, I go back and go, oh, okay, cool.
So it's good to obsess over it, because then it'll just drive you nuts.
Yeah, I will, because like if I get a score that's not very high, it just hits me and I go, I didn't get validated. So it's like I have to stop and go and do that. I guess I don't know if it's double deciding, but just, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. There's times when I'm not going to do well, and that's okay. And just be able to kind of cut myself a break on that. And yeah.
Would that be, so would you say like the places that people would perceive you as too, maybe not too strong, would be like Oregon or something, where it's like, like the
No, we don't have a particular product in that market. I kill it in Nebraska, but then apparently Iowa, right next door, not so much.
Okay, that's interesting.
So it just depends, but most of the part, honestly, I've learned how to reel it in. Usually I do a lot of word pictures with people because I'm disseminating a lot of information, and I do a good blend between the physical health and behavioral health. So I bring a lot of humor into it and just joking around. And so, I tend to tone it down with humor, or I just tone it down. Sometimes I'll get super kind of passionate, which, a lot of people like. They like that inspiration and passion, and it fuels them. And they're like, yeah, and what we're doing, and we're all in this together. And so I enjoy being able to do that. And sometimes I just kind of feel it out and see how it's going. I at least clue into it more now than I probably did in my 20s and in my 30s, for sure. Where I think that a lot of times, because with that TE, and I'm like, in the SI, well, here's your problem. Here's how to fix your problem. So if you don't want to be in your problem, it's just like no emotion.
Right.
And so that's good for, when I would do lay counseling with women, that was good. Half of them maybe, or a quarter of them, that worked fine. They just give me the do. But the whole other half I was wounding. I was hurting them. And it wasn't helping. And so my desire is to help. So I had to learn how to communicate with different types of people and to just tone that stuff down. And especially when I went into the counseling program, of course, that helped a lot. I don't even, when I do coaching now, I totally allow the person to take the lead. I'm just there to support them and be an ally with them and ask questions and kind of navigate with them. But I've learned to tone that down quite a bit. But when I need it, I can use it.
I think that's your power, because you're not a pure blaster, you're blast play. So because you have that play, you know how to go back and forth with the tribe, and you know how to share experiences, and kind of like how you described earlier when you would start talking passionately about something, it's like it's very play, you do go to FI, but it's play. It's like, bringing everyone together. It's back and forth, because I find that blast sleep or sleep blast, it's a little bit, people can't relate to it, because they're trying to like lecture someone as opposed to connecting with the person, because play is all about connection, right?
Yes.
yeah, like I'll give my sister as an example. She just figured this out this year actually, which is good that she figured it out. I think my sister's blast sleep play, and like an INFJ I think, and she said I noticed that when I start lecturing people, their eyes like drops or they stop, they look away, and I just lost them, you know.
Yeah.
And like sometimes we would talk to my sister and she would like kind of ruin the vibe because she's not playing, she's trying to lecture us, but it's like playtime, right? It's supposed to be like back and forth, you know, or throwing jabs. There's some humor infused into it, and when you take that out to like lecture someone, it destroys that vibe, right? So um I want to talk about your play now because since this is you kind of talked about that. So would you say you're more fluid when it comes to talking to people because you do have that play? You know when it's time to play. You know when it's not blast time, it's play time, and it's in a savior state. You know, so how do you experience your play?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you described it, I'm constantly looking around, like when I'm walking around the gym, kind of making eye contact to see who's gonna like smile or wave or you
Yeah,
know. So it's like it's always out looking for people and seeing what are they doing and are they. So even when I'm walking down the street, I'm just waving and being friendly, which I'm in Texas, so we're super friendly, mostly friendly down here. And so just that engagement with people, I just enjoy that. I love like if I can just sit down and it's time to like banter and oh yeah, let's get into it and just talk about it. It's just so much more fun than just the one way. Sometimes it helps me as well. I've had to learn also to curtail play because sometimes I'll get too humor and it's not appropriate. And I'll, when it's kind of a serious moment, especially if it gets emotional, then I will jump towards humor instead of allowing the emotion to be there. So I've learned how to just step back, especially in coaching or counseling, and just give room, just to give that room for people to process and not have to fill the air.
yeah.
And it feels like it's a half an hour when it's like literally 20 seconds. So I've had to kind of balance and not be either too serious, because I can get like super deep, super serious, super quick. So learning when not to do that, when it's appropriate, when it's not. But for me, I just feel like it's just taken time and experience for me to pick up those patterns. That didn't come super naturally for me. It's something where I had to be hit upside the head over and over and over again for me to go, I need to stop doing that because that didn't work. So it's just taken time though. Maturity, I guess. I don't know.
I think the fact that you even recognize that or you saw that means that you do have that high play. You are picking up the tribe constantly, and when what you're doing is not effective anymore. Kind of like what you talked about, how you try to infuse humor when really you needed the emotions to flow. Let it like do its own thing before you get back to business, right? So the fact that you knew that, I think that's a sign of play also, because you pinged off the tribe, right? You're like, you pinged off, you tried humor, didn't work.
Yeah.
Didn't work. And we're like, okay, I need to stop this. It's not working.
Back. Yeah. And that's the nice thing. That's the nice thing too. And I think maybe it's the intuition where it's lightning speed, where I will be kind of coming out with something. And then I realize, okay, that's not going where I need to go. So let me just put it in switch over here. Like I will do this constantly as I'm watching that person to try to navigate in that conversation. Cause I'm like watching them to see. And so the bummer about that is that I'm constantly as an EJ, then I guess it's the EJ part of me is feeling the pressure to do that. So when I don't feel the pressure to have to do that, like I can just be and say and do whatever. That's why I enjoy being around with other people that are like that don't get offended easy or right there with that play level. And so we can banter around. I don't have to constantly worry and filter myself, but I do.
So you earlier you said that you are Texan and you are really friendly because you're Texan, and Texans.
I don't know. People think Texans are friendly, and we are. Most of the places are in Texas.
People think Texans all have guns. I think that's the first thought that comes to mind. But
you might. A lot of us do.
But my favorite Texan is Brene Brown. And
oh yes. Oh, I love Brene Brown.
Yeah,
she's an ISTJ.
Yeah, and she's actually the same animal as us. She's as you actually. Blast plays Sleep and Team also.
Oh, okay. Oh, she's amazing. I love Brene Brown stuff.
Yeah, it's I think it's life changing actually. Like when her teaching, like she brought to light,
Yes.
like learning how to be more vulnerable and like
Yeah.
just letting that out. That's just so good. It's scary though. You do get hurt more when you do that, but
Yeah, you do.
you do feel. I think you feel more self-respect for yourself when you do that though. I think that's the best way for me to describe it. The feeling.
Yeah, if feeling for me, the way that the kind of hits me is that, or at least my desire, you talked about some purpose as well, is to, I think that you're never so free as when you're free to love. And
Right.
so when you have that ability to, that you're okay and you've gone through and you've sorted through and you kind of own that stuff, especially as an EJ, being okay with the fact that you may not get that validation or whatever, and then to not take it so deep and personal. I'm slowly getting there, but it's nice because then I'm not so focused on guarding and so focused on and being like this, and I can be more vulnerable, be more open, and be like, it's okay, and just kind of drop that guard down. And so over time, I've gotten better with that. But yeah, vulnerability that's not easy.
No, it's not. um, let's talk about you being an EJ. So EJs and IPs have people problems, and EPs and IJs have things problem, right?
Yeah.
So can you, what kind of people problem stuff would, I guess, trigger you? Would you say, like what would like really like get a rise out of you? Because like I'll give you an example for me. One of my things problem is if I put my groceries in the back seat of the car, and then I'm driving, and then suddenly I hit the brakes, and all the groceries spills down to the floor. That really triggers me. I go batshit nuts. And like I always hit my feet. I'm very clumsy. Like I have like bruises on my feet. My girlfriend, same thing. She just hit the chair earlier, and she hurt her knees. So we have things problem, like major things problem, right? But people to us are okay. Like people is fine. They can be annoying. Some of them are good, but in general, it's fine. It's not a big deal. So you are an EJ. So the people is where we're gonna get stuck. So talk about like getting triggered by people.
Oh, it's so funny because I'm married to an IJ. I've been married for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he's an IJ, probably an ISTJ. And what's funny is for the first probably decade, I've been married for 3 of them. For the first decade or so, I remember having this thing like, I just think that things are more important to my husband than I am. And I started realizing now, I look back, I go, well, yeah, things
Yeah, they are. They are.
And so like I had to like work through that. I'm like, how can you, and what's funny though is and I'll get to the people thing, but I'm so like flippant about things. I'm so flippant about it. And so because I've noticed him be so good with things and be mindful of things, especially as a lead SI, where he's like, well, we need to take care of things, maintain things so that we have them down the line. I go, yeah, I totally get that. So, things would happen where like, something would get stained and he would like lose his mind. And I'm just like going, wow. And so it's so funny because I just would be, oh, dang it, I stained this. Gosh, I literally bought it yesterday. Oh, well, kind of a mentality.
Yeah, no.
So he has taught me how to be more thing oriented, to actually take care of things, because I'll tinker with things. I'm telling you, I'm coming back to the people thing. I will tinker with stuff all the time. So I'm super mechanical. So like our dishwasher broke about a month ago, and we've only been in this, it's only like 3 years old. So it's like, what the heck? So our dishwasher wasn't working. And of course I have blown up more appliances than I care to admit, because I will just get in there and go, no, I'll fix it. My husband's like, okay. So I'm in here and I'm ripping. I at least did some consume. I've gotten better. I did some consume. I went to YouTube and I found the model and I went through a tutorial that told me, God bless those YouTubers, told me exactly how to do it. So I was like, okay, I've got it. So I went in there and I just, did all this stuff. And right towards the tail end, I noticed that there was this little washer left over when I put it, it just appeared out of nowhere. And I was like, okay, when I was taking this apart, where did that go? That thingy. It's like, I couldn't remember. So when I'm putting this dishwasher back together, apparently that thingy mattered. Because I was like, maybe it won't matter down the line. And no, it mattered. So we went to turn it back on. It just started flooding the floor.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh my gosh. So then I was like, okay, stop it. So I went back in there and did all my stuff again. And I put the washer in the right spot. And and ran it again, and it still didn't work, which just drove me nuts because I couldn't figure it out. So we actually had to break down and call an appliance guy. And so he came and fixed it. So I will tinker with stuff. I'll just go and mess with things and try to, it's not a big deal, but I'm very cautious when it comes to people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tinker with people, and that's where I get serious and realize, okay, this is a human being on the other side of this. And so that when I see the IJs or the EPs just kind of blow off and just go, people, it's like, I'm sorry, but there are people on the other side of that. And so that will get me sometimes. Certainly the Pharisees thing gets me all of the time. And, but as far as like with people in general, I tend to be able to get along with most people. It's not too difficult because I can usually figure them out fairly well. I mean, there's some people that probably don't like me in general just because they don't like me. But I mean, most of the time I just figure out how to, work. That's not the right word. I don't want to use the word manipulate, but it's almost like you just figure out the give and take in the relationship, and you figure out what they want, what they need, what they like. And so you have this capacity then to shift in that. And so with that, most people I kind of get along with, but it's disingenuous at the same time because it doesn't necessarily always mean that I'm showing up. Sometimes I'm hiding some of that for the sake of having this connection or having this, this relationship. So I don't have a ton of relationship issues. Usually if it's where I don't know what's going on with that person, like something happens and, I'm not hearing from them or don't get something back. And I start wondering, okay, did I do something? And so I start running through that game of what did I do wrong? And did I do something? And how can I fix this? And is there conflict? And I should probably fix that conflict. And so I have to like stop and take a deep breath and think through that rather than jumping to try to go fix it, which isn't always the right thing.
Okay, so based on your story, the first thing that popped up to me that I thought was quite funny was that because you're not info dominant, the flood happened in your dishwasher, but also you were so calm about it too. You're like, yeah, you know what? If there's a flood, we can clean it up. We can go find some.
Yeah, we just mop it up. My husband's probably like going, can we please call a repair person? I'm telling you, I'm going to fix this, know? And, so it's like.
Is he a double feminine ISTJ also? Because usually you date someone that's opposite sexual modality, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
Sure
Is he sleep consume ISTJ, would you say?
Yeah, he's definitely got the sleep consume energies at the top. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's the first thing I noticed was like the energy dominant versus info dominant thing. Next is, I do have a question for you. I find it very interesting because there's something about EJs that kind of confused me right now. So with IPs, their biggest fear is tribe hate. The IPs are scared of tribe hate. The EPs are freaked out about control. And the IJs are scared of chaos. So for EJs, you guys are scared of not knowing who you are? Is that what it is? What is that? It's something to do with yourself. So what is it? Is scared not knowing you're all having identity crisis? What is the underlying
I think if just going back to the human need that, Tony Robbins would have to do more with connection and belonging. So that when there's a disconnect, when there's a sense of not belonging for me, that's difficult for me. It's not that I don't know my identity. It's more that it's feeling that sense of having permission in certain ways to be able to be who I am or express what I want to express or have what I want. That's a little bit more of where the permission piece comes in for the EJs. But the biggest fear for me would be disconnection. It'd be a lack of belonging, losing tribe.
Well, Dave and Shan said that,
and I could be wrong. I mean, that's just my understanding.
It's fine. We're just having a discussion on this. So
yeah,
EJs and IPs have more problems with pain. So for the IPs, it's the pain, the emotional pain that the tribe will cause them when they get tribe hate, when they get, ostracized by the tribe. The tribe bands up together with a pitchfork and, fire, and they're going to
burn down your Jenga blocks.
burn them on a stake like they're a witch or something, so that's kind of like their big fear. or chased out of
Oh,
town.
I gotcha. Okay, so ours would be, are we good enough? Is that what you're?
So is that the EJ problem? Is that the pain of not knowing you're good enough? Is that the pain then, or?
Yeah, I mean, that could be part of it. Yeah, that is, especially for me, I think now I'm kind of tracking with you. Sorry, I'm gonna have to get in my FI, and that's hard for me to do. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think it would be that I don't have value. That I don't have value, and that's where, like, even in my job. So even in my job, for me, I'm always constantly busting my butt because I don't want them to ever think that I'm not valuable. Because the moment I'm not valuable, but this also, harkens back to some of those abandonment issues.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not valuable or show my value, show my worth, show that, then that means negative consequences for me. They're just going to, fire me. So it's constantly this feeling that whatever my identity is, I don't know if it's that it's not enough. Maybe it is that it's not enough. It's not valuable. It's kind of the way that value is the word that comes to mind for me.
Okay.
So that's why I fear sometimes even writing, because it's like, why would I do that? Why would anybody read anything that I have to say? I don't believe I have that type of value to people.
Would you say you have like you feel like a fraud sometimes?
I feel like, permission wise, I feel like that sometimes I have to be a fraud, or I feel like I need to be a fraud to be able to get, I think you're right on point, to be able to have and maintain that connection to what I was talking earlier, where, it's disingenuous in the sense of maybe not putting me out there, because if they don't like me, then that means, potential rejection. I lose that relationship. I lose that tribe. Yeah. So rejection, abandonment, those kind of fears are definitely a big deal.
Yeah, because I was talking to my manager before. I have a manager. I'm pretty sure she's an ENTJ because she looks exactly like one of the ENTJs I interviewed. And the good thing about EJs is you guys are always encouraging people to be better. I think that's the world will not run without EJs. So she was encouraging me to do a presentation, a keynote speech in the big fitness convention here in Vancouver. So every year there's a big fitness convention, and she wanted me to do a keynote speech because she said, A, you know what you're talking about, and B, you can make good money doing this. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. And
Why?
she's like, why don't you want to do it? Like, cause I'm really good at trigger point therapy. I'm really good at when people's knees hurt or lower back hurts, I seem to have a knack of fixing people's pain problem. Like I had a client before. I think he was an ESTJ. He had pain in his hips that it just wouldn't go away. And I fixed it within 3 weeks. It was gone, completely gone.
Wow. I wish I'd love to hear you.
Yeah. And it was kind of I guess it's my talent. I have a knack at I can look at someone and I can kind of assess real quick where your pain point is for your muscle.
It's that app that kind of lays out for you.
Yeah, I can I make them some exercise. I watch their movement. If they're moving in a weird way, I can kind of okay, you're moving this weird way. I know that the problem's here. For example, I had a client before. The elbow was hurting, right? I'm like, your problem is right here. They're like, what does this have to do with this? I'm like, trust me. Press this. This is gone. She pressed it. It was gone. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
And another guy, he couldn't bend his arm all the way here, right?
Yeah.
You need to foam roll your triceps. And then he's like, oh my God, it's been 10 years. I couldn't, so my manager wanted me to do a keynote speech on this. I'm like, I can't do a keynote speech on this. I'm not certified to talk about this subject. It's just what I have is just from experience and intuition. I don't have the ST to back it up. I feel like a fraud,
Yeah, I hear you.
She's like, no, you need to do it because you can benefit people. But I feel so, but my problem is not to get rejected by the people watching. It's I don't have the scientific supporting document to back up what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I feel I'm a fraud by doing this.
Did you do it?
Well, there's a pandemic, so I never did. But
okay.
But my manager was really shoving me to do it this year.
Well,
So
there's nothing like that to get your ST together, though.
Yeah, you're right. No, that's a good point. The thing though that is what I'm finding now with the muscle is sometimes what the scientific community has is not really the fix, because the fix that I've discovered, it's not my discovery per se, but the I implement will kind of contradict the messages that they have in the scientific journal. So like, so I don't know. I'm info dominant, so I'm really paranoid about this kind of stuff,
Yeah, that's a good point. It brings up a good point also that I have done. So that kind of brings the blast part in this, and then also the fact that I'm not info dominant, which I would have thought that I was because I'm constantly swimming in information, but apparently I'm not. And so I was in Nebraska and I was going to train on psychiatric medications to the group. So it was a big BH training, different trainings that I had to do. And so over there was the medical director of pharmacists. So literally that morning, I'm just kind of sifting through, because I like to sift through and do a quick little consumer class. I was reading back through and I'm reading about acetylcholine and the difference with this and this and that. So I literally get just enough and I go, oh, wow, that's super cool. Literally get in front of the psychiatric medication things with my manager back here, the medical director over here, and I just blast that information. And he looks over at me and he goes, I go, all right, so I think that it may be a good, healthy fear that you have of making sure that you're going to be careful with what information, respecting it. It's not that I don't respect the information. I do. I'm just so quick with it and I've spent so much time with it that it's easy for me to kind of just grab something new and then throw it out there.
Right.
And you're just like, yeah, I wouldn't do that.
No, that I would be definitely afraid to do that.
Yeah.
It's I know it's really weird. Like for EJs, the biggest fear is getting rejected or being ostracized from the group, perhaps. But like for me, it's like as info dominant, I'm like, I'd rather get ostracized from the group than having this information wrong. Like kick me out from the group. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Like if you kick me out of the group and call me a piece of crap and go to the internet and say like I'm a scumbag, that's fine. Like that doesn't bother me as much as like if I get information. If someone calls me out on my wrong information, I'm like, oh my god, and the world is like apocalypse.
Yeah.
I know it's really weird. It's really weird.
No, it's just the way that you're wired. I mean, I certainly would probably be, oh crap, I got that wrong. Oh well, okay. Note to self, scratch that.
Yeah, but for you, it's so easy. You're like, oh yeah, I got it wrong. It's information's information. I'll fix it. Yeah, so there's something about EJs that also interests me is that so I was in a Facebook group, and the pastor personality guy. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, I think I watched that one. That was not that long ago.
Charlie is his name.
Yeah,
yeah, Charlie.
Oh, no, it was a while back actually, because he's an ESTJ, but he's the jumper.
He's play last, I think.
Yeah, and he was TENE, right?
No, he's blast first. He's blast, sleep, consume, play. I think he's play last. I think. Yeah, I interviewed him, but it was only 15 minutes long when I interviewed him. Maybe because the low play. I don't know. Anyhow, we had this discussion in the Facebook group about like how EJ should not look at people as groups, like those people and those people. So I want to ask you about that. Like, do you categorize people as like those group of people, like those, those Black people, those Asians, those Mexicans, like those Republicans, those Democrats? Like, do you put people in groups? Would you say, is that something that you have like subconsciously do, but like just automatically?
Well, SI likes to catalog.
But it's like it's an EJ thing though. EJs love categorize.
Well, I've got both. so
yeah, it's double then.
It could be double. Well, one of the things I've had to learn over time is, to your point earlier too, about being a little bit judgy with that sleep you were talking about, is because for the most part, I tend to believe the best about people, but I can also be all or nothing. And so it does become pretty easy for me. I can slide into that categorizing, but I'm super conscious of that, especially as a social worker. So again, this has all been trained out of me, and it's forced me to look at views that were different. So as a social worker, as a counselor, as a coach, I've learned to spin that and to learn cultures different than what does this group think? What does that group think? So open and be more, open to understanding people's stories and people's viewpoints. So I think I don't know that I jump into that. I just tend to see people. I don't know that I necessarily see groups.
So when I was having that conversation with Charlie, the advice I told him was like, don't look at people as groups. Look at them as individuals. Like this person, this guy's, Jerry. This is, Bill. This is,
Right, because everybody is individual in their life and their story. And yeah, I would say that the same thing too, with I've worked with so many people that are marginalized and that are impoverished. And so you can't just lump people in. I mean, you go listen to people's stories. And I've listened to so many people's different stories. I help with Katrina. When I help with Katrina work, and I just, would pull them off to the side and I'd say, tell me your story. So I love hearing people's story. One of my top strengths is curiosity. And so I love taking in people's stories. So when you hear their story, you stop doing all that nonsense. You stop just dehumanizing people and just thinking all or nothing and shoving them into a box. And
I think it really helped that you ended up in the field that you're in, because it really helped develop your NF.
I think so.
Yeah, because listening to people's stories is very NF, right? Like
yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like hearing people's story. Like it's abstract. It could or it could not be factually true.
That's true.
Story. It's a lot.
Getting to know them.
What's that?
Just getting to know them.
Yeah, getting to know them, right?
Person.
Just the individual, exactly. So, and then later on you make a judgment call based on like your SF, right? Like, do I like this person or not? So. Well, that's good that you went on that field. I think if you were not in that field, it would have been harder to distinguish groups from individuals, I think, because I do notice that a lot of EJs, they tend to lump people into groups, like I work in the fitness industry, for example. So one time I was in the fitness center and this like one guy went up to me and he said, those Chinese people are messed up. They're messing up Canada. And then I'm like, I
would have lost my mind.
I'm like, dude, I'm Chinese. Like,
dude. I would have lost my mind. Like, so if you were standing there, I don't know that I wouldn't have been able to go, what did you just say? Like, no, I tend to check people. Like that right there just gives me a visceral reaction. Sorry.
It's horrible.
Wow.
Really wow. So I told him, I'm Chinese. Like, why are you saying this?
But then I have to stop and think that there's been many times in my life where I've had to grow in that, and you just have people, and not that this is an excuse, but you have to. I've learned that some people just don't have that level of beyond themselves, and they just need to step out of their bubble and spend some more time with people that are different than them to really, I don't know.
Well, his next comment was even more interesting.
What did he say?
He said, you're not Chinese. You're Canadian. Get that through your head.
Wow.
You are not those people. That's what he said to me, right? And I'm like, I was like,
you think you're a double decider and you just punched the guy right in the face.
Like I'm info dominant too, right? I'm like, I seem to remember taking my 23andMe test saying it's 99%.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like 99% Chinese, so anyways.
No. Yeah. See, even so this thing, if I feel like somebody's being taken advantage of or is a vulnerable population, then I will stand up for them. And I've always done that. I mean, so there was a Hispanic girl when I was in high school and some of the kids were teasing her on the team. And so I just basically got up and walked off the court, and didn't have running laps because I walked off the court. And it was the coach who started it and these other kids. And I was like, you don't do that. What is wrong with you? So I've kind of always been sticking up for people that I feel are, maybe vulnerable or whatever.
That's really
not vulnerable, but marginalized, talked down upon. It doesn't matter what the group is. If someone is attacking that, then I'm going, wait a minute, stop attacking, and maybe get to learn or understand people better.
Well, that's really brave of you to stand up for other.
No, I don't know what got into. If it's someone else, I will do that. If it's me, probably not as much. I'll just take it.
Oh, that's terrible. But
oh yeah, it is. Oh, but I'm learning. I'm growing.
Yeah, I just think the EJ thing is really there's an example I like to use all the time because long time ago I was working in this one facility, and this tall white guy was looking at me from a distance, and he was like, come here. And I was so I was so like triggered by this because it was so rude, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't do this to people. It's so rude. So, anyways, I didn't know how to react because I kind of froze at the moment because like that was the first time I kind of experienced that. So I was like, okay, I thought to myself, okay, what would I do if this happened again? You know, I said, okay, number one, I would say to myself, I don't care if I get fired. I need to call that person out, whoever like does that. And I just need to do that. So I'm like, okay, fine. So 5 years later, it happened again. Just like, I think it was a year ago, actually. Someone did this to me again. And another white guy, another facility I worked at. So I went up to him and I said, why are you doing this? This is rude. You don't do this to people.
Wow.
And I wasn't calling him out for racism or anything. I was calling him out for his mannerism, for his behavior.
Yeah.
It's rude to do that. You don't do that to anybody, regardless of whoever. And he said, I don't have a problem with your people. And then
Are you serious?
And then I was like, and when he said that, I kind of started laughing inside. I'm like, whoa. Because at this point, I've learned about op. So I knew right away he was like an EJ and he had like people problems. And I was like, okay. I was like, never mind, it's fine. So I go off and I fix whatever problem he had issues with. I come back, I see him talking to other Asian people. And he said, I don't have a problem with your people. You know, I really don't. And I'm like, oh my God, you're just being embarrassing now. Like, just stop this. I was just trying to call you out for being rude. Not like, it's not a racial thing. It's a manners. It's a manners thing, you know, like this is bad manners. You don't do that.
Yeah. It's beyond bad manners. It's a little bit of ignorance, and
he was older too. So
it could be an age thing, and
yeah,
it's not cool.
Like he's probably in his 60s or 70s. So I probably thought like, you know, in his days, that was probably like okay to do that to people.
Probably.
You know, now it's not okay, but back then it's okay to be condescending, I guess. I don't know.
It wasn't okay. It's just allowed.
Yeah, it was.
We don't tolerate it anymore. Thank goodness.
It was tolerated. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You got that. It was tolerated. All right. We're gonna wrap up this interview soon, so I have 2 last questions for you, and then we will wrap this up. So my first question for you is, I'll put some context first before I ask you this question. So, it seems to me that you do know your FI. It's just that you're what do you call it? A little bit more apprehensive when bringing it out, but it's there and you know it and you're aware of it. You even gave a specific name to it. And in my opinion, that's a big win for you as an ESTJ. Regardless of that big win that you have, a lot of ESTJs or EJs in general, they can't even identify that. They can't even identify what you were able to identify. So even if you know, your fourth function is always going to be rudimentary at best. You know, my SI is going to be rudimentary at best. And your whole goal essentially is just to get a working, to get it to the point where you can use it at least, you know, a functional use of your fourth function essentially. And you have that. I can see you have it, because you identified all this, you know, feelings and even your FI bucket list, you identified that. So what advice can you give to other EJs who don't even know what it is? They don't even know what it is. They can't even identify it. It's like, when you ask them, it's like a complete blank. Like they're not even shy to bring it up because they don't even know what it is. Like it's completely like, it's like, you know, it's like a, what do you call it? Like a gray screen, you know, like, you know, in the television, you know? So what advice can you give them to help them bring that out? Like at least to identify it at least.
2 things come to mind, at least it worked for me.
Yeah.
So I'll maybe give the concept, then I'll actually give some ST of like something super practical.
Okay.
So the first 2 concepts that I think were super important for me to figure out, one is that self-awareness and how do I build self-awareness? And the second one that goes hand in hand is self-compassion. And so with self-awareness, one of the things is to start working on mindfulness. We just kind of step back. And that's what's nice about the intuition running in the background, especially as a double observer. I have the ability, as all EJs do, to kind of step back and to kind of just notice things. And so one of the things that really helped me was journaling. So just to give a really quick journaling exercise that really worked for me, that helped me to identify feelings, thinkings, all of that, and to put it right here in my sensory, right here in front of me. So the first thing that you do is you figure out whatever the emotion is, and you just have to kind of stop. And if you have to get a feelings wheel and, you know, go point at your feelings wheel, then point at your feelings wheel and look that up, but put that on there. So let's say it's sadness, for instance. So you write sadness at the top. The next thing you want to do is you just want to draw a picture. of what sadness looks like. So this is a little bit of kind of stepping into that enough and just like visualizing and thinking, and some imagery is putting a picture to what sadness looks like for you. And it doesn't have to be perfect or pretty. Nobody needs to see it. Doesn't matter. So just put that down. And then the next thing you want to do is write something that's a little bit more like a metaphor to it. So sadness, when I feel sad, I get so overwhelmed. It feels like I'm just being sucked under the ocean. Like just put some type of metaphor to it. And then the next thing you want to do is to write in sadness makes me, and just put those actions. And again, just stream of conscious of it makes me go sit in my room and isolate. It makes me just want to hide and put my headphones on and shut out the world, so that you can see the actions. So you can start linking, making these links, making these connections. And then the next thing you do is the thinking. So it's sadness makes me think that, and you fill in the blank. Sadness makes me think that I'm never going to be better. I'm never going to get over this. I'm always going to feel this way. And then one other little slight thing is sadness makes me think about. So this feeling makes me think that. This feeling makes me think about. The sadness makes me think about you said your parent. That's what it makes me think about. Because that's that block, that's that anchor down there that is going, okay, so now you can literally see, and you have this document in front of you that's got your feelings and your actions and your intuition, everything's all on this document right in front of you. And so it really helped me to do that, to begin to get it outside of myself and put it down, and instead of all the way up here. And I could see, oh, wow, and it's just like I'm just pouring myself out. So that was very helpful. And just as far as self-awareness, the other thing that to kind of combine with that would be self-compassion. And I think that's where I tripped up the most, is because I tend to believe that, if I beat myself up when I screw up, it's the right thing to do. And that gets me nowhere. And so I started realizing this thing that I was so upset about in myself just makes sense in light of, what I've gone through or different things like that. And just to have some compassion and to start loving and to start showing that. And so one word that I switched, which has been helpful for me, is to switch from the word should to the word could. And so I've been using this more recently. When I get into that, oh my gosh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And I start getting into that and starts getting worked up, as I stop and I go, okay, I could have done this. I could have done that. And it gets me out of that and allows me to have more of that possibility, rather than really just getting kind of tanked in my own self. And so different things like that would just be things I would say: self-awareness, self-compassion. Those are the things that have helped me. And then therapy. Get a therapist.
I like how it's very clear, like the steps that you provided. I think the self-compassion stuff too was really good. It was, I think it's really helpful, because earlier you mentioned that as an EJ, you have this tendency to you have to prove yourself to the tribes to be worth, to have that self-worth, right?
Yeah.
But I also feel like the person that's really causing your self-worth to go down is yourself,
Yeah.
You beat yourself up, right?
Yeah.
So I think that self-compassion is really good advice. Do EJs do that automatically, would you say? Like, as an EJ, is that an automatic response that if you do something wrong, you beat yourself up? Is that like hardwired? Have you always done that since you were like a kid? Or is that something that was learned?
I don't know. I don't remember if I did it as a child. I just know for sure in my adult years, I definitely was super hard on myself.
Got it. Okay. I'm curious now if it's like for EJs, if it's like learned or if it was
That'd be great. Yeah. It'd be nice to know. I don't know if anybody else has that.
I need to ask the next EJ. Like if
Ask the next EJ.
Yeah, if it's learned or if it's
It doesn't matter.
or if it's automatic, like it was something that you just did automatically. Okay, my last question for you is, it's time for you to consume now. Do you have any questions for me about my type, because we have the same functions, but different orders and stuff. I'm also masculine and feminine. So do you have any questions?
The masculine feminine is audiokinetic?
Yeah, like audio kinesthetic. So I have an emphasis on the audio, but then I'm also good at kinesthetic stuff, hence why I work in fitness.
Yes.
I also teach spin, which is music and exercise. So, it's not a surprise.
Yeah. So you're that lead NE that you have, that savior NE, like how do you describe it? Because NE just seems so like when you go to describe it, how would you describe it?
It's almost like an addiction, like it's like an uncontrollable addiction. Like I know I'm doing something that I should not be doing because it's gonna mess me up, but I can't help it. And that thing is gathering, like over obsessive with gathering, like watching, and the keyword is new. It has to be new. I cannot rework the same old information. It has to be new. So it has to be new information, um, and it has to be constantly flowing all the time. So because I'm play first, I'm always bugging people for information. You know, that's why I do interviews, right? Because I'm really good at gathering information from people. You know, that's play. That's
This works.
but I have consumed Demon, but I still use it a lot. So, you know, I obsess with reading books, but it has to be a different book every time. Even though the answer that I wanted was already presented in one book. And really, if I want to solve my problem, I should just reread the same old book because I'd already had the solution. I would choose to read another book, a new book, because it's new. It has to be new because if it's old, it doesn't work for some, I don't know. I know it's illogical, but it's kind of like how NE works, you know. It has to be new information all the time. And, you know, and it's just like, I should be organizing kind of like what you do, you know, before you spoke with Shan, you had everything organized in bullet points, you know. So everything I should be doing should be, you know, I should bullet point stuff. I should put, you know, a number to it. And I do have save your blast. So I do that, but I don't do it enough. I do it. I still abuse the NE more because I've double activated NE, right? So it's always nonstop gathering. For you, it's you have NE in a balanced state. Yours is like how you're supposed to do it properly. For me, it's like how someone who has an addiction to gathering would do it, you know. I guess the best way to describe it, if I were to compare it to you, is for an EJ, it's the need to get validation from other people by doing really well, like succeeding and being effective and serving a tribe. So that's kind of your that's your addiction. That's your, like, you can't, uncontrollable, like, drug. So for us, it's so if you take that feeling that you have from that, but instead you put it onto things like gathering books or reading materials, it's the same thing. That's the feeling.
Oh, that's super cool. Thanks for that. That helps.
Yeah, and I think that's how I empathize with people too now. Because like when I see someone freaking out about people, I'm like, okay, think back about your addiction with gathering and being controlled, and that's how they feel. I'm like, oh shit, oh wait, that's really
Identify. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, that's really messed up. That's really bad. Then, you know, okay, then I feel compassion for them now.
Yeah.
You know, and I just walk them through it because I have that. For me, it's a superpower, right? Like people, it's like it's not too bad. So I'm like, okay, let's walk you through it. Let's talk about yourself. Let's talk about the tribe. Make sure that boat is okay. Have you taken care of boat? Because if you haven't, that's why you're freaking out. You know, and it's okay. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling right now. It's okay. I'm masculine TE, right? So it's very like feminine with the tribe. So I'm like, everything's okay. You know, don't need to beat yourself up. You know, so yeah.
That's great.
All right, Heather, thanks for doing this interview. Really appreciate it.
Oh, so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great too, since we're in a pandemic and we're stuck. So I think it was fantastic. All right. So bye everyone, and bye to Heather.
Thanks.